I guess it's time to get going. And I have 3 goals with this talk. Goal number 1 is to convince you all that it's a good thing to get old. Goal number 2 is to convince you all that you shouldn't go faster. You should probably do the opposite and slow down. And goal number 3 is to convince you all that you should keep on coding until you die. So will I succeed? Well, I guess we will have the answer to that question in about 40-45 minutes. So welcome. I am Tobias Modig, a consultant at TOBIAS in Stockholm, currently acting as a developer coach. And this is Get Old, Go Slow, Write Code. And this talk will be a bit interactive, and I will use an online poll, so you can all already now browse into menti.com and use the code 4246 0190, 4246 0190, or just use the QR code. And no worries if you didn't manage to get the link this time, it will come back later in this talk. So let's start. And what is old? I will start this talk by quoting myself from the talk description. So, turning old as a developer is hard. It is hard to stay relevant, hard to keep up with the competition of newcomers, and hard to know all of those new frameworks, tools, languages, and practices. So like almost 20 years ago, I worked at a big travel company back in Stockholm, and we were about 15 people sitting in this big room, working with a public website. But in the corner of this room, there was 2 odd fishes, 2 grumpy old men. And one of them actually coughed so loud, so everyone took shelter under the desk each time, hiding from what we thought was like the World War III incoming. And those 2 old men, they worked at a different system. I believe it was some kind of maintenance system, and it had this really old-fashioned UI, taken directly from war games. And the programming language, I know it wasn't Java, and it couldn't have been C, because both of them lacked these big C developer beards. So I guess it was like Fortran. But suddenly, one day, they were gone. The system was replaced. They had become irrelevant, like dinosaurs from a past time. And as far as I know, both of them went straight to retirement. And those 2 old men, they have in some way been like my mental image about how it is to get old as a developer. Getting old, not just physically, but also in the skills and the techniques. But still, I do admire those 2 old men, because they stayed on with a passion, writing code, until the bitter end. But back to the main question, what is old? And I will bump that question back to you. So now it's time to pick up those devices and browse into menti.com. Use the code 4246 0101. Oh, sorry, you might need that QR code one more time. So I will remove that code in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.5. Okay, I guess everyone got it. So this was just a warm-up question to check if the technique was working. So if you could kill a Star Wars character, who would it be? And I'm really glad that we don't have that much killers in the room. But still, there are 2, at least, people in here. Who wants to kill Yoda? I have one message for you. There is the door. Still, Yoda, Jar Jar Binks ratio, quite good. So, yeah, maybe it's okay. So, let's move on to the real first question. Should be an easy one. What is your age? Are you 0 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50, or are you older than 50? So I guess my year span is the most popular one in here. Wonder why? So guess the number of votes are running out. So let's continue. So are you a software developer? Yes, of course. Or did you used to be? Or no way. I will never touch code. A lot of developers. Pleased to see that. Still coming in a few late votes, but let's move on. So from a developer perspective, do you consider yourself being old? Yes, you do, or no? Or are you more like, are you kidding me? Me? I won't get old. This is more of a close race here, but I guess the no side still is leading this. So final question for now. Once again, from a developer perspective, what do you consider being old? Is it like when you reach 20, when you reach 30, when you reach 40, when you get 50 or above? Or are you more that kind of people that think that I will never grow old, but everyone's older than me. They are truly old. Then you go for the my age plus one. Or is it more that age is like a mental thing, not really a physical one? Yeah, so quite obvious victory here. So let's move back to the presentation. So what actually triggered me into this from the beginning was reading that Stack Overflow developer survey back in 2019. And it stated that the average age of a software developer, that was 28. So 75% of us are below 35. And India has the youngest developers with an average of 26, while the Australians are the oldest with around 32 on average. So that sounded quite young to me. So I actually cross-checked it to a few more sources and got more or less the same result. So compared to that, I would say that the audience in this room is quite grown up. I don't know if it's like the topic that attracts the oldies. Probably the rest of the room are like filled with younglings. Or is it more that Java is like new COBOL? I don't know. Nevertheless, average age, 28. That sounded quite young to me. So I started to compare us to like other professions. Of course, this is a bit like comparing apple and oranges, so don't take these numbers like an exact truth, but I'm sure they are accurate enough to give you some kind of like perspective in comparing software developers to other professions. So I started to compare us with teachers. And what's the average age of a teacher? And it's actually turned out to be like the meaning of life for those of you who knows your hitchhiking. It's 42. They beat us with like 15 years. That is quite a big difference, isn't it? And how about medical doctors? Well, no surprise there. They are even older than teachers with an average of 51. So like 42% of the doctors are above 55. Project managers. Well, this is an interesting one, I think, because I believe that software developers, project managers, have more or less the same level of education, who work for the same employers, in the same projects, maybe within the same team. So with the same age. No way. Average 42, same age as teachers. So I continued to check a few more like common office jobs, and I couldn't find anything with an age profile that was even close to being a software developer. So I started to realize that I wouldn't find anything that looked like us developers and demand some years at the universities. So I continued to check up some other types of jobs that don't demand those years at the universities. For instance, taxi drivers. How old are they? But they are even older than teachers, average 47. I needed to go lower, so I actually grabbed a cab. I went to the bar, started talking to the bartender, and now we're getting closer. But still, they are like 6.5 years older than us, with an average of 34 and a half. And how about their colleagues at the restaurants, the dishwashers? No luck here, same age as the bartenders, average 34. And that's a bugger. Now it's starting to be quite grumpy because I really wanted to find something by myself that was younger than us developers, not just cheat and like reading the statistics. And then I remember this tweet I saw. Minecraft players. How old are they? And they actually turned out to be younger than us, average 24. We beat them with 4 years. That's not bad. But still, it's a big leap between being a software developer and a bartender than it is between being a software developer and a Minecraft player. And to be honest, Minecraft players, not really a profession for most of us, right? More of a hobby, so it still felt a little bit like cheating. But then I got it. You can always count on the US military, right? And in this case, that was actually true. So they have an average of 27. We beat them with a year. And also, to be honest, this is not really a profession, but more of a employer. So this includes everything from like 5-star generals to pilots to tank drivers. So for instance, I expect a cannon fodder to be even younger than 27. And also, sport professionals, for instance, professional football players, got an average a bit over 26 and a half. So beat them as well. And when finally cheating with that statistics, I found out a few more jobs with a lower average age than us. For instance, I believe that the lifeguards were the youngest with an average of 22. But still, age, that's just the number of a paper, right? What's actually more important to me is how long do we tend to stay within the profession? So I will bump that question back to you. So once again, time for the mobile phones. Menti.com 42 46 09 01 90 for you latecomers. So question number 1. So how many years of experience as a developer do you have? Is it less than 2, 2 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, or do you have more than 20 years of experience? It looks like we have an early leader here. Second question. What was the age of the best developer you have ever worked with? Was he or she less than 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50, or older than 50? Early lead from 31 to 40, but 41 to 50 is closing in. Quite close race, but I think we have a winner. And if you take a wild guess, so how many years do you think you will continue being a software developer? Is this your final year? Do you think you will be coding for 1 to 2 years, for 3 to 5 years, for 6 to 10 years? Do you think you will be coding for more than 10 years? Or are you actually not a developer? Or will you actually code until you die? And let's just cross our fingers that that last option was actually longer than the rest of them. So clear winner once again, I guess. I'm pleased to see those results. So back to the presentation again. So once again, I would actually claim that the audience in this room seems quite a bit more experienced than the rest of the world, because the expected number of years to stay as a software developer, that is 8. So after 8 years, the average developer quits and moves on and do something else. I would say that that's bad. I think we are replacing the developer tribe way too often, throwing competence right at the scrapyard. So why is that? Are people using being a software developer as some kind of bouncing pads towards other professions? Or are we scaring them away? Once again, I will let you answer that question. So anyone still needs the QR code? Guess not. So just one question this time. What do you think will make you quit as a software developer? Do you think you will be burned out? Or do you think you will get a promotion, change your role? Do you think you will code until retirement? Or do you think you will lose your spark? Is there something wrong here? Okay. Or do you think you will something went wrong? No kidding. So maybe I should try disconnecting the cable and see if that's... Do I have an internet connection? Yes, I do. Sorry about this. It feels like Menti is slow. No, I think so. So, well, two sandwiches walked into a bar. So why did they leave? They didn't serve food. Okay, that was a cheap dad joke. I guess we should skip the Menti part, or what do you believe? Well, let's keep on with the original presentation. So the last question was like, what do you think will make developers to quit? What do you think will make you quit as a developer? And when having this talk, when reading surveys, when talking to people, there are usually like three things that stands out quite a lot. And reason number one is that the developer loses spark. It is not fun to be coding anymore. And the second big reason for a developer to quit, it's actually getting a promotion, changing role. And the third big reason for a developer to quit is having a hard time to keep up, getting old, getting slow. So let me elaborate a little bit more on those three, starting with losing the spark. And for me, it would be interesting to know why people like lose their eagerness to code. It's a bit out of scope for this talk, but still, I would say that this is a sad, but also a very valid reason for a developer to quit. I mean, if you don't have the passion for coding, you shouldn't have it as your profession. So the day you start to wake up with a feeling that I don't like coding anymore, I want to do something else, I hate my job, then you have my total blessing. Please, go on, try something else. But how about the second big reason for developers to quit? Getting a promotion, changing role, climbing the company hierarchy. Well, if it's in like the combination with the first one, losing the spark, I think this is a very valid path to take. I mean, you know your organization, you have a great fallback option to move back to coding if that new role wasn't something for you. But if you're more after like hunting a higher salary or getting a role with more status, well, I don't know. I actually stepped into this trap myself once. So I was flattered, but also surprised when I was offered to become head of development at this .NET place. But I'm sorry to say, but it was so boring. It felt like a total waste of my expertise. Instead of doing things that I loved, like writing code and doing other like techie stuff, I was stuck at those budget meetings, talking about resources or arguing with a cab. You know, the change advisory board? Well, these changes that my developer did in our mobile app could not make airplanes to fall down from the sky. You might think that that was a bad joke, but it's actually true. I once had to have a discussion to this group of hopefully quite smart people why changes in our mobile app could not make airplanes to crash. So did I do a good job as a manager? Well, I think my teams liked me, and I was pretty good guarding them from like the insanity of company administration. But I was probably not as good from any other point of views. And I guess most of us have seen this. Just because someone is a great developer, that person will not automatically become a great manager or a good project leader or even a decent agile coach. I guess the opposite is just as common. And there is actually a term regarding this, stated in the late 60s by Lawrence J. Peter and Raymond Hull, and it's called the Peter Principle. And the Peter Principle states that a person who is competent at the job will earn promotion to a more senior position which require different skills. But if the promoted person lacks the skills required for the new role, then they will be incompetent at a new level, and so they will not be promoted again. So according to the Peter principles, we will get promotion until we reach our level of incompetence, and there we will stay, being incompetent. In worst case, forever. If we're lucky, we get fired. I don't know. And this will eventually lead to what's called the Peter's corollary. So in time, every post tends to be occupied by an employee who is incompetent to carry out his duties. So according to this, we have companies, organizations out there where more or less everyone is incompetent at the job. Of course, this is a bit satirical, but it gets some touch of truth in it as well. And here we have what I usually call the expected software developer lifecycle, where we should start as an ordinary developer. But after a few years, we are expected to try to move on, maybe become a tech lead, and move on after that to a project leader, an agile coach, and an ivory architect. And finally, some of us might reach nirvana and become some kind of manager. To me, that's mostly trying to push people from being competent to being incompetent. And we have known this for more than 50 years. And still, this is one of the most common reasons for developers to quit. I mean, there are even courses in turning from developer to manager. Well, I think this is whacked. I think we need to address this. There must be ways to make a career and continue coding. So any manager seeing this, could you please stop trying to transform 10x developers into 0.4x administrators? Instead, give them a decent salary, reward them continuously, and let them keep on doing what they do best, writing code. And you developers who think about change career, please think this over. Trust me, it's not worth it if you don't have the passion for it. But how about the third big reason for developers to quit? Having a hard time to keep up, getting old, getting slow. Is it a problem to get old as a developer? I mean, maybe Zuckerberg were right. Young people are just smarter. Well, so are we over 40 like dinosaurs, ready for extinction? I might be biased here, but I would actually say that Zuckerberg is wrong. I mean, Newton, for instance, he was 44 when he published the Principia, and Röntgen was about the same age when he discovered the X-rays. And if you take a good look at most Nobel Prize winners these days, they look more like American presidential candidates than software developers, right? And also remember that poll we did in the beginning, the best developer you have ever worked with. I think it was a quite close race between 31 to 40 and 41 to 50. So I don't think that people get stupid just because they get old. But how about the slowness? Well, I would actually claim that slow is good. Don't think about slow as something bad. I think we need to slow down. In one of my older talks, I quickly mentioned that I believed that we need to stop focusing on speed and start focusing on other stuff. And that thought grew a little bit on me. So I investigated it a little bit more. And I found out that way smarter people than me had more or less the same ideas. How about these tweets from the TDD guru, J.B. Rainsberger? Worried that TDD will slow down your programmers? Don't. They probably need slowing down. This one, also from JB. Sooner, not faster. Slow down to avoid making rash commitments. Lemmy, the guy who cracked the MacBooks a few years ago, going fast without control could be the biggest enemy of software development. Still not convinced? Joshua Karyevsky, father of modern agile, we slow down in order to gain better balance and control. Ultimately, this kind of slowing down helps us speed up. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. So what is fast? What is speed? What is slowing down? Well, I believe that too many people mix up rushing with speed. People want us developers to be like Usain Bolt. You know, Usain Bolt, the fastest man on earth, on 100 meters. But what they forget, it's a software development. It is not a 100-meter dash. It's more of a marathon. Still, we're trying to behave as Usain Bolt, running as fast as we can for 100 meters. But when we reach the goal, we are asked to run 100 meters more, over and over and over again. I don't think we should be Usain Bolt. I think we should be Ricardo Abad. So let me tell you the story of Ricardo Abad. So he's from the city of Tafalla in Spain, and on the 1st October 2010, he ran a marathon. And on the 2nd October 2010, he ran another one. And so he continued for 607 consecutive days, running one marathon a day for more than 1.5 years. And what's even more impressive is that he continued to work in shifts at the local factory meanwhile. So if he worked nights or in the morning, he ran in the afternoon. And when he worked in the afternoons, he ran in the mornings. And I believe that that's the mentality we should have as software developers. We are long-distance runners. We are not sprinters. We need to slow down and find the sustainable pace. So why are we still doing this kind of like rushing? Well, I believe it's a combination of things. For instance, deadlines. To me, deadlines are usually like poison. It's mostly a random date that someone like guesstimated a long time ago. And that date then magically transforms and becomes some kind of like goal that we need to reach. But I actually think that I did this right, at least once. At that time, I was doing a gig as a system architect at the Swedish tax agency. So me and my team, we were responsible for the like identification of users for their public e-services. And for those of you who don't know, the Swedish tax agency, they have this really strict deadline once a year. It's in the beginning of March. And that's because everything there circles around the yearly income tax declaration, where like 85% of the Swedish population above 18 uses their e-services during a little bit more than a month. So how do they make sure that nothing breaks during that high traffic month? Well, they have a code freeze. And you don't mess with a code freeze at the Swedish tax agency. You are not allowed to do any changes. So what we needed to do before this strict deadline was to replace an old obsolete solution with a brand new one. So this was a big job. We needed new software, we needed new hardware, and of course a whole lot of development. But after a while, that deadline in March, it was starting to feel tough. So what should we do? We needed to take a decision. Should we work overtime? Should we rush? Should we cut some corners or build a hopefully working but definitely crappy solution? Or should we wait a year and try to build a quality solution? And this time we actually took what I still think is one of the best decisions in my career. We actually waited. Sure, we lost some prestige. It probably costed us some money, but we could make a solution that was easy to maintain, that we could use for many years to come, that we could be proud of. But I'm sorry to say that this is one of the few occasions where I have ever seen this, that not even that really hard, strict deadline was really a deadline. It was more of a goal, and it was actually treated as a goal and not as a deadline. What I believe is another rushing factor is actually the lean and the startup movement, where we are told that the only thing that matters is to deliver, to be the first on the market. But to be honest, how often does it make a difference for your employer if you rush instead of keeping a controlled pace? Maybe for one of us, once in a lifetime, but I would claim that for the rest of us, it doesn't ever matter. Taking a few Swedish real-time examples here. Spotify, for instance, they will definitely not use listeners just because a share playlist with a QR code will be a week late just because you need to work some extra on that unit testing. And people will keep on playing Minecraft, even if the sea creature must wait for the next release, just because they need to add some documentation. And people will definitely not change their mortgage loan to another bank, just because they can't download the latest interest rates as a PDF file. But those users will definitely start looking for other options and maybe even leave you if you start building a crappy and hard to change software, which you, in a few years' time might even dare to change at all. And also, how about all those bad implementations in the name of agile? I mean, just listen to the word sprint. What does that imply? Let's rush as fast as you can for 2 weeks, then come back tomorrow so we can start a new 2 weeks rush. That's just like asking Usain Bolt to run 100 meters more right after every race. I think we need to slow down and find the sustainable pace. And the Agile Manifesto, it also promotes this, that agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. And those of you who knows your XP, extreme programming, should also recognize sustainable pace as one of the key concepts. So, what I believe that we all should stop focusing on speed and start focusing on quality. And based on that, I would claim that it doesn't matter if you're a little bit slow as a developer. It doesn't matter if you're a bit old, because it doesn't come down to who is the fastest on the keyboard, who knows everything without asking those stupid questions, or who knows all the new tools and frameworks. It all comes down to the quality of the code, because it's still so much faster in the long run to build things right instead of building things fast. So if you're a bit slow, if you're a bit old, you will still bring so much value to your organization as long as you can produce some quality code. And based on those years of experience that you have, I am definitely sure that you can. And Uncle Bob, Robert C. Martin, he says that if your software is getting harder and harder to develop, you are doing something wrong. To me, that is exactly what happens when we rush. Things will become harder and harder to change. And after a while, the only thing to do is to start the big rewrite. Have you been there? I mean, you have the great opportunity to build something new, to build something shiny, but you don't really have the time to do it properly. So you cut some corners, you cheat a little bit with the unit testing. You have the best intention to fix it later, when you have more time. I mean, have the thought like, I do a quick thing now, I will fix it later, when we have more time. But believe me, you won't get more time later. That crappy code, it will live on. It will hunt you down, and it will bite you, and soon your application will be in such a bad shape that you don't dare to change it at all. So the only thing to do is to start the big rewrite. So the same people start building the same application once again. But they don't really have the time to do it properly. So they cut some corners, they cheat a little bit with the unit testing, and there we go again. It's a word for this. It's called waste. It can more or less kill your company. And Martin Fowler, he said that the fundamental role of internal quality is that it lowers the cost of future change. But there are some extra effort required to write good software, which does impose some cost in the short term. So I read this, as Martin is on my side as well, and think that, yes, you will need to take some more time in the beginning, but it will definitely be quicker in the long run. But what's even more interesting is that he also claims that developers find poor quality code significantly slows them down within a few weeks. So to be honest, there are not that many occasions where you gain on rushing, not even in the short run, right? Because most software projects tend to live way longer than just a few weeks. And now, I have been talking for way too long, so just pray to the gods that this thing is still... Maybe we're back. So where were we? Yeah, you actually did manage to answer those questions that I didn't see. So that was the previous question. So promotion, changing role, quite in top. Work until retirement, that really makes me glad. Aging, hard to keep up. Yeah, I think we are more or less in like the rest of the world here. But the burnout, that is really something to consider as well. I think that the slowing down will help with the burnout, but I'm no psychologist, so I don't think I am like the right person to give you a reason if you feel that you're on the way to burnout. So please talk to someone who's better than me on that. But let's move on to the question for now. So how often do you feel stressed about deadlines? Is it all the time? Is it often? Is it almost never? Or is it actually never? So often seems to be the winner here. Let's move on. So how often do you, like cut corners, cheat with the quality? Is it all the time? Is it often? Is it like almost never or actually never? Quite close race here. Do we have a clear winner? Yes, I think we do. Almost never. That's quite good. And final question for now. So why do you cut corners? Do you feel pressure from the management to deliver? Do you feel pressure from the team to deliver? Do you feel pressure from yourself to deliver? Or is it more that quality is like boring or unnecessary? Or don't you really know what quality is? Or do you have some other kind of reason why you don't cut corners? Or are you actually one of those superhumans that don't actually cut corners? So quite a clear winner here as well. So when I saw your answers on those previous questions, I got a little bit spooked, a little bit scared, because I believe that there are way too many people in this room who feel pressure to deliver and who probably solves it by cheating with the quality. It's almost like there's some kind of like rushing disease running through the developer world. And I believe that the cure for this disease is actually to slow down. I believe that the cure is to stop behave like the raging bulls who runs as fast as they can, but in any direction, and instead slow down and take the right decisions. So let me take the last part of this talk to give you some more like concrete examples about what I mean with slowing down. So I believe that you should slow down and take the time to improve your competence. For instance, do this through like attending conferences. You are all here. That is great. Do coding katas, read books, create that, what should I call it, learning culture on your workplace. Because I believe that improving your competence should not be something that you need to do on weekends, on evenings, on holidays. I mean, weekends, that's for family and friends. Improving your competence should be part of your day-to-day work. I mean, if your employer wants you to do a good job, they should also give you like the tools, the time, and the opportunity for you to be as sharp as you can be. And I also think that you should slow down so you can tweak your process, eliminate the waste. For instance, use retrospectives and make sure to have a good outcome. Don't just use your retrospective as some kind of like nagging meeting. Make sure to have a good outcome and that you actually take the time to implement those improvements that you decided on. And I think you should slow down and get to know each other. Build that trust in your team. I guess most of us now have heard like about the psychological safety and the Google's team study that showed that the single most important thing for a team to be high performance was actually the trust in the team, that the team members felt psychologically safe. So spend some time to clean up that team hygiene. So if anyone saw Arthur Doller's, I believe that was his name, talk yesterday, real good one, did you miss it? I do encourage you to see the video. It was more or less mostly about psychological safety. So please go home and watch it. And I think you should slow down and take the time to plan. In my experience, we usually do this the least when we need it the most. So constantly plan and revisit. Use like sprint plannings. The daily stand-ups. For me, the daily stand-ups, that's the planning meetings. Its main purpose is not to like report what you did yesterday. Its main purpose is to plan the day ahead. What's the most important thing we can do? Is it something that's holding us back? Plan the day ahead. And I think you should slow down and take the time to refactor your code, remove those code smells. Remember the Boy Scout rule. Always leave your campground a little bit cleaner than you found it. Always leave your code a little bit cleaner than you found it. And I think you should slow down and add some slack into your life. The parable of the traffic jams. You know, everything rolls quite smoothly on that highway until the number of cars reach that magic limit of what the highway can handle. And suddenly everything goes from a quite decent pace into a total jam just by adding a few more cars. And I believe that we people, we are more or less the same, with a full schedule or with an idea that you should be coding from 9 to 5. You will be choked. As soon as something unexpected happens, there will be chaos. Instead, try to add some slack into your life, some unplanned time, and that you decide on a day-to-day basis what's the best thing you can do with that time. And I think that you should slow down so you can build quality software from the beginning, because that's the only way to be fast in the long run. So like 40 minutes ago, I said that I had 3 goals for the day. So did I succeed? Time for the mobile phones, one last time. So you will now go home and take the course, developer to manager, or will you actually slow down? Or will you rush a little bit harder? Or will you just promise yourself that you should keep on coding until you die? Or will you play some Minecraft just to raise the average age? Or will you try to learn something new, like Fortran? So just some final words to all you developers who probably will stop being a developer in the next few years. Please think this over. Beware of the Peter principle and stay with your passion. And don't bother about your getting old and slow, because you are actually not growing old. You are growing up. Take advantage of that. Make those gray hair your biggest assets and let the rest of the world slow down with you. Thank you.